Today we're focusing on a story that's shaking up not just Burkina Faso but the entire Sahel region and drawing sharp reactions from world powers. Just days ago, Burkina Faso's President Ibrahim Traoré publicly accused France of orchestrating destabilization plots against his country, while praising Russia as a trusted partner in the fight against terrorism. This comes as Burkina Faso, under Traoré's leadership, has become a symbol of a new wave of African sovereignty, rejecting decades of foreign influence and charting its own path forward. But why is this happening now? And who is Ibrahim Traoré? To answer these questions, we will take you inside Burkina Faso's remarkable transformation, the legacy of colonialism, and the high-stakes geopolitical tug-of-war unfolding in West Africa. Hello, I'm Gunjan Handa and this is the Asian Chronicle. At just 37, Captain Ibrahim Traoré is one of the youngest leaders in the world and one of the most charismatic as well. Born in Kera, Burkina Faso in 1988, Traoré studied geology at the University of Ouagadougou, where he became known for his activism in student organizations advocating for social justice and African autonomy. After graduating with honors, he joined the military in 2009 and quickly rose through the ranks, eventually becoming a head of artillery in the Kaya regiment. Traoré's rise to power has been dramatic. In January 2022, he participated in a coup against President Roch-Marc Kabore, citing the government's failure to address rampant terrorism and insecurity. When the new junta leader, Paul-Henri Sandaogo Doumbouya, also struggled, discontent among youth officers led to a second coup in September 2022. Traoré emerged as the new leader and was appointed interim president, a role he holds to this day. Since then, Traoré has become a symbol of hope for many Burkinabe, especially the youth. His popularity is rooted not just in his military credentials, but in his vision for a sovereign, self-reliant Burkina Faso. Traoré's leadership is defined by radical reforms and a strong anti-colonial stance. He has made it clear that Burkina Faso must break free from the grip of former colonial powers and chart its own destiny. His rhetoric is steeped in anti-imperialist and pan-African ideals, drawing inspiration from revolutionary leaders like Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's iconic former president. On the domestic front, Traoré has implemented sweeping changes. He reversed his predecessor's salary increases for government officials and continues to live on his military captain's pay, a move that resonates with ordinary citizens tired of corruption and elite privilege. He nationalized two major gold mines and stopped exporting unrefined gold to Europe. Instead, he inaugurated a national gold refinery expected to process 150 tons annually. This keeps more value within the country and supports local industry as it is. Traoré has also prioritized agriculture, investing in new initiatives and establishing the National Support Center for Artisanal Cotton Processing. These efforts are credited with lifting hundreds of thousands out of extreme poverty and boosting the economy. Infrastructure projects like a new airport are underway, and Traoré has pledged to empower local governments to better serve their communities. But the challenges are immense. Burkina Faso has lost about 40% of its territory to extreme violent groups, forcing the closure of thousands of schools and health facilities and displacing over 2 million people. The UN Refugee Agency reports that those needing humanitarian assistance increased by 35% between 2022 and 2023. Despite these obstacles, Traoré's government has managed to maintain broad public support. Surveys show that two-thirds of Burkinabe accept military rule, a sharp increase from just 24% in 2012. Traoré's popularity was on full display at a recent African Leaders Summit, where he received the loudest applause, a sign of his growing influence across the continent. To understand Traoré's appeal, we must look at the legacy of colonialism in Burkina Faso and across Africa. Like many African nations, Burkina Faso was colonized by France. In the early 20th century, decades after independence, the country remained deeply tied to its former colonizer, with French military bases and economic interests shaping its politics and security. But Traoré and many of his supporters argue that this relationship has done more harm than good. They point to persistent poverty, underdevelopment, and insecurity as evidence that foreign powers have failed Burkina Faso time and again. Traoré has denounced what he calls, and I quote, imperialist exploitation, and called on Africans to wake up to work for the happiness of African people, to fight against imperialism and to decolonize mentalities. In a recent speech, Traoré accused French President Emmanuel Macron of insulting all Africans, saying, and I quote, France exists today thanks to our ancestors. They should pray for us. He has urged African nations to break military pacts with France, arguing that only by standing on their own can African countries build strong, independent armies and secure their futures. France has not taken this kindly. Traoré's rhetoric and his actions have not sat well with them. In February 2023, Burkina Faso expelled hundreds of French troops and broke military and bilateral agreements with Paris, accusing France of failing to combat terrorism and even plotting to destabilize the country. Traoré has repeatedly accused France of orchestrating coup attempts and destabilization plots, often with support of neighboring countries like Ivory Coast and Benin. Meanwhile, Russia has stepped into the void. Burkina Faso's foreign minister has publicly praised cooperation with Russia, calling it a quote, partner with whom we can make progress. Russian military instructors have arrived to help train Burkinabe forces in the fight against terrorism, and Moscow has offered economic and political support as well. Traoré and his government have dismissed concerns about becoming too dependent on Russia, saying they know what they want and where they want to go. Russia's anti-colonial, anti-Western narrative resonates strongly with Traoré and many other African leaders who see Moscow as a counterbalance to decades of Western dominance. As Burkina Faso moves forward under Traoré's leadership, the world is watching. The country faces enormous challenges: terrorism, displacement, poverty, and weak institutions. But Traoré's vision of sovereignty, self-reliance, and pan-African solidarity has inspired millions both at home and across the continent. The question now is whether he can deliver on his promises and lead Burkina Faso into a new era of peace and prosperity. One thing is certain: the days of foreign dominance are over, and Burkina Faso is determined to write its own story. I am Gunjan Handa, and this is the Asian Chronicle.